Hello, we are doing an interview 10 question with Todd from Pollution Circus. Actually, Todd from Pollution Circus used to be my pen pal in the 80s. This is a long time ago, many years ago. In the 80s, you probably heard of Pollution Circus because their interview was all over like different fanzines, all over. That's how I contacted. I don't know how I met Todd, maybe through a zine or pen pal, I don't know, but we used to trade, like Todd used to mail me like their demo tape and all kinds of stuff. And in fact, in the this is in the 80s, when vegan wasn't not that much known. I used to pronounce the word vegan as a vegan. I thought it was vegan for the whole time. And somehow I couldn't do it. Like it was so hard for me because, in the 80s, I mean, there was health food store. There wasn't that much health food stores. It was like so hard to get to. It was like really far away. So I wrote to Todd and I said, hey, Todd, I don't think I could do this vegan thing that long. I have to just go back to vegetarian. My gosh, he wrote me like almost like a book. Like all these long letters went on and on, nonstop. And he inspired me to stay vegan. It was so long time ago. I was like reading all this stuff. I mean, I was getting literatures from PETA and everything, but there wasn't that much information. But Todd wrote me so many stuff. Eat bananas. These food will give you energy. This and that. The cat. But if you go back to vegetarian, you blah blah blah. The guy was going on and I go, wow. He's just writing like a vegan Bible. And then Pollution Circus. I really love the band. My favorite song from Pollution Circus was "Anarchy, Please." So this was in the 80s, and way later on. I don't know why it took them so long to release a 7-inch. Was that for Profane Existing Records put out their 7-inch. But now back to the 80s. Last time I saw Todd was in Orange County in the 80s at a HUNSAP protest with Roz, Wanda, everyone were there. And then we went to Roz and Wanda's house, and Todd, where everybody was making food. I think they were making spaghetti. I remember till this day in the 80s. And I remember Todd was chopping carrots and putting in the spaghetti sauce. I was like, that is so strange. I've never seen anyone carrots in the spaghetti sauce. Also, I would like to also say rest in peace to Roz. Roz was our old friend. He passed away this year. He was a founder of HUNSABs in Orange County. I know it sounds weird in Orange County, but there was a hunting convention in OC. We will always kind of protest it. And then also a lot of people don't know this, but I'm just saying this because it's all over online. I didn't even know about it until recently because of the online forum, because Roz kept it quiet all this for many, many years. He was a member of Animal Liberation Front in the 80s in California. And I didn't know anything about that. So rest in peace to Ross. But this is all over online. I just found out. Todd, are you ready?
I'm ready.
So 10 question with Todd
yeah.
from Pollution Circus. All right. Question number 1. Can you tell us about the 80s Northern California anarcho peace punk scene, and what activism were you involved in?
That's the scene was quite different, I think, in Northern California maybe than Southern California. And I wasn't really, the punk scene was kind of the punk scene, and there was political punks and there were people that did activism or whatever, but there were the drunk punks, but it was all kind of one scene. I was never a part of a separate peace punk scene, except for reaching out to people all over the world and writing to people like you and bands and people all over, and the hippie core folks. And that's kind of my community. I made more of a community of people that were more like-minded from reaching out to people because I didn't know them around me. And in Sacramento, it's pretty small. And in our town, I was probably the most outspoken and the most radical of the activists. And there were people would be at demonstrations and things, and that would be at demonstrations from environmental things to like the Stop the City kind of things, and the Democratic National Convention in San Francisco. But there wasn't like a separate political punk scene. It was rare. In the Bay Area. There were some bands, I knew of bands, but I I was always kind of shy, and I never really put myself out there. I'd go see bands that I really liked, but I never like went up and talked to them and got to know people. I knew a few people just from interim. There were these two girls in Santa Cruz that put out a zine, Protest and Survive, and I think they were from San Francisco originally, and they played in a band Atrocity that I loved. They're great animal rights, band from early 80s in San Francisco. And it's funny, the original bassist lives here in Amsterdam, and I know her still. But so I'd met them just from their zine, from putting out Protest and Survive and getting them from them at shows where Trial played and Sleeping Dogs and those kinds of bands. So I always looked for the political bands, but I never got into like a scene of hanging out with those people. My people were the people that I knew in Sacramento and kind of grew close to just from going to shows. And I cooked at a vegetarian restaurant and knowing people and roommates and yeah, Chucky, the inspiration. Chucky was the starter of Pollution Circus, and he was the drummer. And he stumbled upon my house where I lived with a roommate who was also in the beginning of Pollution Circus. And he stopped going to high school. He just started coming to our house and learned to play drums. We had a drum kit. But so it wasn't so separate. There was maybe a scene in the Bay Area of like people that all hung out. I know I was at New Method a few times, and that was kind of the people from A State of Mind. And at that point, I think Christ on Parade had come around. Before Christ on Parade, Treason was around. I knew Malcolm, who was the bassist from both those bands, but just from, I think we played together in my first band, Ego Whipping the Pound Puppies, which was a total animal rights band. And so I knew a couple of people. I knew, I forget the guy's name. The singer from Christ on Parade was from Econochrist, and we knew them. He was friends with our drummer, and but so it was never so separate political. It was always just kind of the punk scene, and I was always the political crazy one that was putting out all the information and telling everybody to go vegan and being pro-revolution and But activism, I was active from before I was a punk. I mean, I volunteered at the Peace Center from when I was young. I stopped going to school when I was 12, 13, and I was already vegetarian. And one of the things I did was I went to the Peace Center. I volunteered, and at that point, we were going to the Air Force Base in Sacramento and protesting against armaments and so. And when I was a young punk in Colorado, we were also volunteered at the Peace Center, and we did protests there. There was, at the time, they were taking missiles on trains throughout the states, and there were places all over the states where people were blocking the trains, and we did that where we lived in Colorado. So I started with activism really with like peace activism, and then I was already vegetarian, and when animal rights, I kind of became aware of that outside of punk rock a little bit, and but then also in punk rock, and but I think that's about it for number one.
Question number two.
Yeah.
How was the peace punk scene different from the regular punk rock scene?
Yeah, I kind of just got into that. There wasn't that much of a difference. I think for me, and I had my group of friends that were kind of a lot of people that were influenced by me to become vegan, some that are still vegan to this day, and some that are sadly not. But I lived for a while and hung out with people that lived in kind of groups, and we cooked all vegan. I helped raise a couple of kids. The first bass player for Pollution Circus, Kevin, he and his wife had a baby when we just started, and but that was kind of my circle of friends, and they all became vegan mostly because of me. And we all cooked together. We did Food Not Bombs, and we started giving out food to homeless people. Homeless problem in Sacramento is a really big thing. It's a place where it's a mild climate, and it's small, and it's an easy place. There's lots of rivers and outdoor spaces, and and lots of crackdowns by the police to try and kick them out of the places that they make their homes. So, and they didn't have food, and we started doing Food Not Bombs back then for the homeless people, and got known for that. But that was my peace punk scene, was really those people who weren't even necessarily all punk. Some of them were like deadheads and kind of hippie kind of folks, and but just kind of that had common ideas, and we're into anarchism and veganism and helping people. And that's kind of where that was my scene. That was kind of where my core. We were part of the art scene. Pollution Circus started also as part of the art scene. Our first shows were part of these moving art galleries where there would be some bands, and they were usually punk bands, more the political and poets and performance art, and also art installations in places that just moved.
Question number 3.
Yeah.
How has the veganism and animal rights movement changed from the 80s compared to now? Do you feel like activists are doing different things or doing the same thing as in the past?
Yeah, veganism has changed immensely, and I'm really happy to see the progression. It's like, it's not normal, but it's so much more normalized, or becoming more normalized. Everybody knows what vegan is. Well, I mean, I've been vegan 40 years in April. And when I became vegan, you could barely get tofu. I mean, you get tofu at the Chinese shops, and the health food store didn't even have much tofu at the time. And you weren't going to find it in a supermarket. And soy milk was, I mean, there weren't things geared towards vegans at the time. So I think in veganism, it's changed immensely. I'm happy to see the progressions. One thing I'm sad about is that all the vegan companies ended up getting taken over by Unilever or Nestle or a multinational. And there's one group here. I don't know if there's any in the States. I'm a little disconnected because I live here and pretty much keep busy with things here in our little country. But I have a friend here that I know from activism that started the Dutch Weed Burger, which is a vegan burger. And he started it so all restaurants all over could buy this product from him and have a vegan item on the menu that they could sell. And he started out really small, and now it's in every supermarket, and he's all over the place. And he's helped other vegan companies grow, and they started their own thing called the Good Karma Collective. And instead of selling out to Unilever, which they got approached by big multinationals, they said, no, we're going to do our own thing. So they joined together with their own vegan companies, and they made the Good Karma Collective, and they're growing their own companies on their own. And I'd like to see more of that. And hopefully that's the future, things continue to grow. But veganism has gone in leaps and bounds I've been here in 20 years in the Netherlands. And in that time, it's grown immensely. I mean, just the regular supermarket has whole vegan sections, and everything's marked with little tags on the shelves that it's vegan. So that's changed immensely. Animal rights has changed immensely too. And I think that's changed a whole lot because of the internet, and security because of the internet, and definitely the way activism can happen has changed a whole lot because of DNA and I mean, all of that stuff, the whole, that's changed a whole lot of things people can do, and the way people do things. So I think it's progressed. My feeling is still that the heyday was back in our days, that the late 80s, early 90s were kind of the heyday of animal rights. I think it got to its peak then. I'd like to see it peak again and then get bigger and just, but I think activists need to get smarter and really adapt to new technologies and new ways to be able to do activism in an effective way. That's.
Question number 4. You turn down a job from PETA. That's like a dream job to a lot of young activists these days. Why was this?
Like I said, I never liked big groups, and I started with, even just when I worked in peace organizations, knowing that the smaller grassroots groups were more effective and did better things than the bigger groups got. The bigger groups got, and the more money they got, the more money they put into paying people salaries and paying people and going towards lobbying and doing things that through activism and being there at the Capitol and starting, I was at the first animal rights demonstrations there, I think, that existed. That was the first time people got arrested in, at least our time, in '83 at UC Davis. And at that time, we were all kind of geared toward lobbyists and lobbying and trying to change, legal, little things in the law to stop pound seizure and things like that. And I think it just got, I lost track. Back to where I was. So in that group of activists in '83, where the demo happened at UC Davis, there was kind of a splitting. There were people that were a little bit more radical and they didn't want people to get arrested. And there were people that were pro civil disobedience and wanted to make more of a statement and to get arrested. And that was kind of the beginning of kind of a kind of divide in the activism there. And the more direct action, civil disobedience oriented became the Animal Rights Direct Action Coalition. With there were people that did it in other areas, and the other people became PETA. And PETA was kind of becoming big at the time, and I knew that big companies, big organizations in that sense weren't the way to make change, in my opinion. I didn't think that that was the way to go. So I know people would have thought it was a good thing, but I was actually insulted that PETA offered me at the time. It was way back, and they offered me a reasonable salary just to cook lunch for 40 people in an office 5 days a week, and that I'd have a place to live, and I'd get paid to go to demonstrations and get paid for getting arrested. But I just thought that was kind of ridiculous. It's like, people don't give them money to pay somebody to make lunch for them and to pay people to get arrested. I think that people should do that because that's what they're inspired to do and feel that they're driven to do, and that it shouldn't be their way of making a living necessarily. So that's my thing. I didn't want it to be my way of making a living. It was what I did as passion and something I fought for my heart, but it wasn't something I wanted to be paid to work for an organization that was working for a topic that I felt passionate about. I wanted to go with my passion. That's why I didn't go with PETA.
Question number 5.
Yeah.
What are the accomplishments and the failures of animal rights activism from the 80s? Did activism in the 80s make a difference? And if so, how and in what way?
Yeah, I don't have, I have my opinion on that, but I don't have the answer. I think that was probably the highlight of activism for animal rights liberation, and the radical direct action, and the demonstrations getting large. And I think it progressed really well, and I like the way that everything evolved, but it stopped, it petered out, and I think there became a divide again. I think there was always a divide with people who were supportive of more radical action and people that weren't supportive of it, and that scared people, and that made kind of a divide in what I saw. And I went toward the more radical side of it and didn't stay in the more conventional side of it, and so I stayed with that. But they both kind of put it out, I think, on their own because of, like I said, technology and things changing the way there being legislation that changed, that people could get arrested from things like from the Shack 7 getting arrested for having a website and just giving information on the internet, and the animal, enterprise terrorist act. They changed laws that made it that people just going to and talking about things could get charged for things. So the laws changed, technology changed, and it made it really difficult for people to continue the way inactivism was. So I think it was effective for the time, but I think those things kind of happened really quickly, and it didn't evolve. Activism didn't evolve quick enough to be able to stay evolving. I hope that in the future that it evolves with the technology and laws, that another type of activism can come about that can make some real change.
Question number 6. What changes would you like to see now in the animal rights and the punk movement?
Yeah, punk, I don't really honestly see much about the punk movement. I go to a lot of legalized squats here. They're called broodplots, which is I guess literally it means a breeding place, but they're kind of community centers where you can do things. There's usually vegan food and vegetarian food. They have sometimes movies. They have bands play. They're places where you can get bike fixed, all kinds of things. And I'm still involved with that. But those are punks from our time that aren't necessarily so involved in punk per se. They put on music, and bands that play are maybe new and old punks and a mixture of all kinds of alternative music, noise, and kind of everything. And I like that. I like that that came out of our generation of our, yeah, the beginning of, I don't know, our awareness, I think spawned a lot of good things. And I like that here, but I don't have much contact with, I know there's young punks, but I don't have contact with them and I don't know what they're doing. I would love to see the young punks, that there is an active political scene, and I'm sure it's there, but I just don't, I'm not that connected with it. I love like Grow Your Own Records in the UK. That's one of the old bands. Anthrax puts out music again. Some of the old bands that have gotten together, like Flowers in the Dustbin, System, and Hagar the Womb. And I love that stuff. And that's still stuff that really is dear to my heart. And but one of the, I can't go to music here really anymore because people still smoke, and I have emphysema and I can't breathe if people smoke. I'm really, really sensitive to smoke or irritants in the air. So those squat clubs, if it's a small place and there's bands playing, usually people are going to light up a cigarette or something, and I just can't take it. Once people start smoking, I have to leave. The last thing I went to was, I think, the X at the Melkweg, and I really like them. They've progressed and they do great stuff. But so I don't know punk. I'd love to see that become political and that some good things come from it, and animal rights, animal activism, the same. That's
Question number 7.
yeah.
Can you tell us about Pollution Circus? Like, what was your role in the band? What did the band stand for? How did the band back up the awards with action, etc.?
Yeah, Pollution Circus was the dream child of Chucky, the drummer. He put on shows, and he put on a show, I think it was with Christ on Parade at this place, Spanky's, and he put Pollution Circus on the flyer. And he had told me and a couple other friends he always wanted to have a band called Pollution Circus, but he didn't have people. He just put the name on the flyer, and then he asked a bunch of people if we'd play with them. And so we played with them, and then it was me and my roommate at the time, Sean, who was kind of a percussionist, and he was into, yeah, all kinds of interesting stuff, but he brought all kinds of weird children's toys and televisions and strange things to play. We were very artsy in the beginning. Like I said, we were, Chuck didn't have a drum kit. He played a fire hydrant and boxes and plastic buckets and baking pans, and that was his drum kit that he had put together of stuff. And we tended to, at the beginning, that was the very beginning, and the first show was with them, and it was spontaneous. We didn't have songs, we hadn't written songs, we just did spontaneous playing. And then where Sean and I lived, we had a garage in our backyard where bands practiced, and there was a drum kit that Chuck could use. And so there we started practicing and started writing some songs. And at the beginning, we were, I played bass, but I played distorted bass. And my bass was really kind of like the rhythm guitar. I played melodies on the distorted bass. And Kevin Fish was the bassist. And Kevin played guitar. And Chucky played drums. And Sean played the children's toys and televisions and weird stuff. And so that was the birth of Pollution Circus. And I was always political, so anything I wrote was more political. Kevin was as well. Kevin was vegan with me, and he was somebody I met skateboarding, and he became vegan because of me. And he had his wife was pregnant at the time, and I was feeding them vegan to have a vegan pregnancy. And so he was pretty political too. So I think he and I were kind of the driving politics at the time. And Chucky wrote songs too that were kind of anti-war, like Army Barf. And and we played a lot of, like you said, the art shows, and there weren't a whole lot of punk shows at the time, but it was kind of connected. People in the art scene were in the punk scene as well. There was kind of some art punk bands, and we did weird things. We played also in Noise Church, which was just a noise group of people. We got together on Thursdays and made noise. And for Noise Church, we made kind of ads for it by spray painting little, we had a symbol, kind of like a cross symbol for Noise Church. And but Pollution Circus got known because we would take the trash from around bus benches and bus stops, and we would spray glue on telephone poles and on the bunch stops when we were playing and where we were. And Pollution Circus out of trash, and with a cup with things sticking in it that were from the trash. And that was the beginning days. And so we got slowly more political. I think the more I wrote more songs, the more political we got. Kevin and I were both very active in animal rights and yeah, all kinds of activism, but hunt saboteurs and Earth First environmental activism, and yeah, more anarchist political activism as well. But when his baby was born, he left the band and concentrated more on being a father and didn't want to get arrested and have any problems legally, so he stopped activism. And he played in our brother band. We had a brother band, Sins of the Flesh. Kevin was the bassist in Sins of the Flesh, and Kenny, our guitar player, was the guitar player in Sins of the Flesh. And they had a drummer, and that was the whole band. So when they played, the drummer came with us. We always had two bands, and both of us played. And Kenny was very political. Kenny was very politically active with the All African People's Revolutionary Party. So, and I used to go with him to their things. I was the only white guy that would go to their things, but I was very like-minded, and so I was always welcome there. And so we did back up our politics with action. We were all very active, and we started with more demonstration kind of activism and got more to the direct kind of activism, to direct hunt sabs and yeah, the more radical stuff. But so we backed it up with actions very much, and I was very pro activism. I was always kind of, yeah, but there weren't that many punks that I know that really act, not in our area. When I go to Southern California and other places, there are more punks, and in the Bay Area a little bit more, but not so much at animal things. There would be a few, but it wasn't as much as LA was a huge. When I was there, I was shocked. I was like, wow, there's a lot of punks. There was a lot more people too. It was a much bigger city than I was used to. So, but that's how Pollution Circus started. And in the progression, we got more and more radical. We were subpoenaed, both bands were subpoenaed to the federal grand jury that was investigating the Animal Liberation Front, because we were known activists, and there was a lot of activism happening, and so we were subpoenaed, and we were some of the first people that got subpoenaed to grand juries about the ALF. So we backed up our words with action, definitely.
Question number 8.
Yep.
What are some important things that young activists and young punks should know about aging?
Oh, they take care of themselves. Veganism is a great thing. You know, I've been through the ringer myself. My health has been really bad. I had AIDS and I had cancer, and I had AIDS-related cancer, and I was expected to die. There was a rumor of my death actually on a punk site in Sacramento for No Kill. I looked at it one time, and it was like there was this story that I'd passed away, and it's like, what? It's like I didn't pass away. I know I was expected to pass away, and I was doing really badly. But yeah, take care of yourself, and yeah, do the best you can. But veganism has definitely helped me. Being vegan helped me get through that, and yeah, I'm 57, and I'll be vegan 40 years coming year, and I don't feel like I'm old necessarily, but take care of yourself so that you can stay active and keep doing things, and yeah, keep healthy. Yeah.
Question number 9. What are you doing these days, and what are your inspiration now?
I'm not doing a lot. I'm disabled, actually. I have a lot of side effects of chemo. I have emphysema, which makes me really vulnerable to lung things. So I'm kind of wary of going out much in the current environment. I stay active I garden. I have a garden. I grow my vegetables. I like to grow as much of my food as I can, and I have an allotment that's just all vegetables, and I'm out there working in the ground, growing vegetables. Part of I have osteoporosis, and I fell a couple of years ago. That's also from chemo. It really messes up your bones, and my bones are really brittle, and I broke my elbow and my wrist, and I can't play guitar anymore. I can't extend my arm all the way, so I can't play guitars and I can't play chord. So I've been teaching myself ukulele, and I actually have learned music theory, and that's an inspiration. Is learning. I've transcribed all my Pollution Circus songs, and some of them I've rewritten the chord arrangement for them. It's nice knowing music and actually being able to do that. I try to be active. I ride my bike a lot, and I volunteer for these squat places. I cook a meal once a month, a vegan meal, and if that can go through for COVID, and sometimes it's been that people come pick up meals, and I cook things for the local lesbian gay group. They have gatherings a couple times a month, and I always make vegan treats for them. The guys that run the group are vegetarian, and they like to have people have, they usually do vegetarian food themselves. They would, but I offered to do things, so I make things for them, and so I make treats for them, and yeah, that's about what I do. I try to keep busy. I've been writing a lot. I keep busy with art and kind of artsy kind of things. I've been doing embroidery, and yeah.
Question number 10.
Yeah.
Do you think that our movement got passed down to the next generation and will keep going strong? Or do you see it dying out? What message would you like to leave us with?
Yeah, that's what I missed on the last question a little bit, is the inspiration. I have the inspiration from like Greta Thunberg and the young people that are being active for the environment at this point. That's nice to see that there's actually something there. And so I hope that can grow. Handing over the movement to the younger generation, like I said, I think it happened really kind of abruptly, how quickly things changed. Legally, and from going from smaller grassroots organizations to larger organizations. And I think something kind of got lost there. So I don't think that transition went very well, and that there was a time that there wasn't much overlap. The older generation didn't have the chance to really kind of teach the younger generation, because it was new and they didn't know how to go about it, and we're still trying to learn how to adapt to changes. But I think that's changing a bit, and I hope that will give inspiration, that the movement will get strong again, and that there will be more activism for the environment and veganism, and that there will be some real change. Inspiration too from vegan products becoming so big, and that it's something that everybody knows, or pretty much everybody knows what vegan is, and that's growth. That's some positive change. So I do try to latch on to those positive things and think, okay, it's going to happen. It goes slowly. It would always be nice if change happened quicker, but there's always hope, and I hope people don't give up.
Thank you very much, Todd, for the interview. Wishing you good health, good spirit, and good future. Thank you.
You too, Jay. Take care.